Roofing is a dangerous industry, there's no getting around that. Today's methods are better and safer than they've ever been. The changes in the last few years have been significant. Since I started in this business more than 30 years ago, rescue technology has become a very important ingredient in what we do in keeping our people safe. What to do in an emergency and how to do it right. Ensuring the knowledge of rescue equipment and that our people are properly trained in that knowledge, that's definitely an ingredient for safety.
You've become familiar with the different hazards on low slope and steep slope roofs, and you've learned about the safety precautions and systems required to minimize those hazards.
These critical steps that you've taken will help you avoid falls and injuries. But what happens after a person has fallen and is hanging suspended in a PFA?
In Part 5 of this program, you're going to learn about the requirements for rescue operations, the potential hazards, and proper rescue training that can minimize the dangers of a rescue. According to the OSHA construction standard, the employer shall provide for prompt rescue of workers in the event of a fall, or shall assure that workers are able to rescue themselves.
What does prompt rescue actually mean? Unfortunately, the regulations are not specific about the definition of the word prompt, but the idea is that the worker must be rescued before more serious harm occurs. For that reason, roofing contractors need to address the subject of rescue operations in their fall protection plan. And workers should be trained in the hazards of rescue, the available rescue equipment, and specific techniques to assist a worker safely. The first step in an emergency is to call 911, but these emergency responders are not always equipped to quickly get at the worker suspended at heights. Crew members can be trained to perform a rescue successfully, but they need to be able to recognize the hazards and have the proper equipment. Injuries can result when the force of a fall is applied to the human body. An improperly deployed personal fall arrest system that allows a free fall to exceed 6 feet creates tremendous force when it stops a fall. For example, if a 220-pound test mannequin wearing a PFA with a web lanyard is dropped 6 feet, over 4,000 pounds of force is applied to the mannequin. As the force of a fall increases, so does the risk of severe injury. A worker in a PFA who has fallen can also suffer from suspension trauma. This condition can be life-threatening. Gravity causes blood to gather in the legs. Because the legs are not moving, they can't help blood flow back to the heart. The heart speeds up, attempting to feed blood to the brain. The heart eventually will slow because it cannot provide sufficient blood, and the victim may lose consciousness. The harness straps can also exert a powerful force on the body's arteries and veins, particularly in the legs, and that can affect proper blood flow. Each of us has a different tolerance level for suspension trauma. However, the effects can quickly become life-threatening. That's why rescue operations must be planned and carried out right away. Besides suspension trauma, a worker could also have sustained additional injuries, like broken bones, a concussion, or serious cuts. If he has suffered other injuries, the effects of suspension trauma likely will be more severe.
Here's how to recognize if someone is suffering from suspension trauma. Look for fainting, shortness of breath, nausea, dizziness, sweating, paleness, loss of vision, and increased heart rate. Let's look at rescue options. It's usually faster and requires less effort to raise a fall victim up rather than lower him down. And the more workers there are on the job site to help, the easier it will be to perform the rescue. But you have to be careful when responding to a fall. Rescuers must also be protected by fall arrest equipment. You don't want a rescuer to become a fall victim.
On most roof installation job sites, you will have access to equipment that can help you rescue a fall victim. Ladders, personnel lifts, and some scaffolds can be moved quickly and set up for rescue. You should already be familiar with this equipment. Other equipment, such as pulleys, winches, and descending devices can also be used to help rescue a fall victim. But those workers who attempt a rescue with the aid of these devices must be properly trained in their setup and operation. During a rescue, never cut lanyards or lifelines if the fall victim is connected to them. a lanyard or lifeline should only be disconnected when the victim is safe on the ground or the roof surface. A fall victim could be required to rescue himself without help from others. It's not common, but it does occur. Self-rescue is possible only if the fall is not severe enough to cause unconsciousness or serious injury. Here are some tools and techniques for self-rescue. A cell phone or walkie-talkie can be helpful for an injured fall victim. Workers should carry their cell phones or walkie-talkies in a pocket that can be secured so the device won't fall out of the pocket if there's an accident. This is a self-rescue lanyard. It deploys a synthetic ladder from the lanyard's pack end that is attached at the rope grab. If the fall victim is not injured, he can use the ladder to relieve suspension trauma or climb to safety. These suspension trauma straps and slings are adjustable and attached to the lower webbing or the D-rings of a harness. A fall victim can adjust the strap to form a loop above the level of his feet. By holding the lifeline or lanyard and stepping into the strap, he can pull himself up, relieving pressure on his legs. A lifeline loop and Prusik loop are two self-rescue devices that also relieve suspension trauma, but they are more difficult to use. A lifeline loop requires the fall victim to grab the trailing portion of the lifeline that should be hanging next to him. Then he would tie a loop in the lifeline at about knee or waist level. The loop must be large enough to accommodate one or both of his feet. He can then stand in the loop to relieve pressure from the harness. A Prusik loop is a thinner piece of rope or webbing that can be carried in a pouch on a harness. The ropes are tied to form a circle. The fall victim would attach one or more loops to the lifeline, leaving a large loop exposed. He would then place his foot into the loop, hold onto the lifeline, and support his weight. Another technique to relieve suspension trauma is a foot wrap. Here's how it works. The victim wraps his lifeline around one of his feet, inside to outside. He then presses his free foot on top of the line, stepping on the first foot, and then stands up as he holds the lines together at chest level. It's vital to call for emergency assistance immediately and relieve the fall victim's suspension trauma as quickly as possible. A fall victim must be examined by medical personnel after rescue.
Employees should practice the different rescue techniques in their company's training sessions. You never know when you'll be required to help a coworker or yourself.
We've reached the end of part 5 and this video. You've covered a lot of important information. Let's take a moment to quickly review the ingredients you will use to create your recipe for safety success.
In part 1, you were introduced to the basic Occupational Safety and Health Administration fall protection regulations for roofing work in your state or territory.
Part 2 provided you with some important terms and definitions, like low slope and steep slope roofs, holes, anchorages, and personal fault arrest systems, or PFAs.
In part 3, you learned about fall protection for low slope roofing work, including guardrails, safety nets, PFAs, and the warning line and safety monitoring system. You also became familiar with a fall protection option unique to roofing work for use on low slope roofs and how it works to minimize fall hazards. Remember, OSHA has special considerations for hoist areas, holes, and skylights.
Part 4 was all about fall protection for steep slope roofing operations. Again, guardrails with toe boards, safety nets, and PFAs are all fall protection systems that are required to minimize hazards. As with low slope roofs, fall protection for hoist areas, holes, and skylights require special considerations.
In part 5, you became familiar with rescue requirements. Remember, just because someone has been saved from a fall by wearing a PFA doesn't mean he can't be injured. Suspension trauma can be fatal, and it's critical to help the fall victim as quickly as possible, without becoming a fall victim yourself. Roofing professionals should be trained in rescue and self-rescue procedures.
What is my recipe for success? Everybody watches out for each other all the time. Safety is about educating the worker and creating a level of accountability. Safety is everyone's full-time job.
As a roofing professional, you are committed to safety.
It's up to you to comply with your state's fall protection requirements for low slope and steep slope roofing work.
Check out other NRCA safety programs to help you and your coworkers work safely.
That's a great recipe for success.
And remember, roofing is what we do.
And safely is how we do it.
Hey, that smells great. What are you guys cooking over there?
Well, we're serving up safety with a great recipe.
And they've got one for great food.
You can't beat that.
Let's go.
Let's go.